What's up, everybody? Slasher Movie Reviews here, and today I'm actually going to be talking with Luke Shanahan from an Australian film called Rabbit that's premiering at Fantastic Fest, and we're just going to go through. I'm going to ask him a few questions about his film. But first of all, Luke, would you do me the honors in actually giving us a little bit of a plot synopsis for your film so the viewers know a little bit about what to expect?
Yeah, absolutely, Dylan, and yeah, thanks for having me. So essentially, it's the story about a 25-year-old medical student called Maud Ashton who has an identical twin in Australia. She's slightly estranged from her twin, not close anymore. And about a year before, her twin Cleo went missing, and it was a cold case. Police given up. And yet, a year later, she starts being haunted by visions of Cleo, her sister's violent abduction. And convinced she's still alive, she travels back to Adelaide, Australia from Germany, where she's studying, and follows the clues and the visions to sort of a derelict caravan park where she discovers that the fate of her sister is somewhat intrinsically linked to that of her. And the entire experiment is sort of controlled by a sort of a secret society. So she starts to unravel the clues and essentially works out the full truth of what happened to her sister.
Guys, people listening, my review is out. It will be out before this is even posted. So I want to go and let you guys know, if you're watching this before you watch that, I absolutely loved the movie. Like, I thought it was amazing. It had a great sense of dread and atmosphere. It really hit all the beats that you want in like an sort of Australian thriller. And one of my biggest things that I took away from the movie is a lot of things he says in the plot synopsis is this connection with twins that are in the movie, and it made me wonder, what was the sort of creative process behind twins, and even dare I ask, is it based off of any twins that you know? Because there's
sorry, mate. Yeah, look, great question, and I mean it's funny because I've said this a few times, and it sounds like a sort of a line, like a good conversation starter, but it isn't. So essentially, I've got two sets of twins that I know really well, and both identical. And I was out at lunch one day with this one of the twins, and she was close with her sister in terms of the connection they had, but they were physically on either side of the world. So I'm chatting to a twin in Sydney, Australia, and she said one line to me that I thought was just quite an extraordinary thing to say. I asked her about her sister, and she sort of said, "Oh, you know, like she's you know, she's over there in London, and you know, but I can still feel her. I still think if she was being tortured, I'd feel it." And I thought that line was just such a weird thing to say about a sibling. And it was sort of the impetus, you know, the seed, if you will, for Rabbit. And I just thought, okay, so if there was a life-threatening event of one identical twin, could the other one reach out to their twin and kind of cry for help? And almost in a way pull the other one back in like a tractor beam from the other side of the world. So yeah, that's sort of where it came from. And oh, by the way, these set of twins who are still close, I've told them that I've been using this story, and they're quite cool with it. So there you go.
Yeah, and it's an interesting story. And speaking of that story, it's very much of a mystery box, I noticed. And you don't give away a whole lot early on, so the whole time you're trying to unravel what's going on with this twin, and is she even communicating with her at one point? You wonder that. And I was wondering if you had any tips for maybe upcoming filmmakers or storytellers about the creative process and like the writing process of trying to master that mystery box and not just annihilating the viewers at home.
Yeah, look, again, yeah, it's a tough one because a lot of people require more information up front, and David and myself were always very conscious to sort of hold back as much as we could. So I guess, and I mean, it's tough because I think the film's in two halves, as you know, separated by my red block in the middle. And the first half is almost, it's been told, it's almost like, it's kind of conventional. It's a bit of a road trip. It's a bit of a, here go this carload of people trying to follow the clues without giving heaps away. I tried to throw enough breadcrumbs to like you say, to keep people engaged, and I think it works on that level. And it's just an atmosphere of dread, you know, where I think you know that you're going to find out what happened, and it's not going to be good. And that's a deliberate thing, and no doubt the music plays a huge part within it. And so I think if you can hold back enough, I just think that the second act becomes, yeah, it's sort of like we go down the rabbit hole, and then the second half essentially is pulling all those pieces together. And I just set out to make a film that I'd want to watch, and I think the films that I do like are the ones that, you know, they're not procedural. We don't in the first 5 minutes know the solution. We don't know where it's going to go. And I think as long as you trap the audience in and don't confuse, ambiguity is good, confusion not so good. So I think we struck a pretty good chord with just being able to pull the audience in and have them just glued to where is this going, and then pull a few rugs out, and then have a few twists and turns, and hopefully the response so far has been fantastic with the sort of third act reveal. So when when it's all coming together, the payoff is there. There's nothing worse than getting to the end and thinking like you haven't been paid off. So I guess it's just where you reveal those little sort of like those little clues, and when you reveal the big turning points and stuff. So, but hold on to it as long as you can.
Dang, son, that was a great answer. But yeah, you want to give the audience, you want to build them up. You don't want to give them everything early on, because you want that payoff to feel like a reward. Yeah. And man, the payoff to this movie was such a reward. When they get towards like after the road trip, and you start to introduce to these new characters and really get to know them, that's when the movie, man, that you start, they're like presents that just keep coming and coming and coming. And you mentioned the score, which was great, because I think that's going to be something that a lot of people that's going to stick out, because the score is loud. It's definitely present throughout the entire movie, and I love that, because this was the first movie I've seen in a while where, and maybe it's because we just got out of the summer movie season, where the score was there. Like, I feel like a lot of times the scores get stuck on a back burner, and they're more like emotional cues. But this score really like plays a factor into it, and I really love that about the movie. And I was wondering, what was the creative process behind picking this score?
Oh, thanks, Dylan. And I mean, look, I've had this discussion with a few people, and again, movie music. I think it's almost like you said a line from one of my interviews that you weren't at in Melbourne when it premiered, and it was like, music. When did music become an underscore? When did music have to be seen and not heard?
Exactly.
I mean, the music here is a throwback to 70s horror. It's a throwback to Argento. It's a throwback to John Carpenter's synthesizer scores. It's a throwback to sort of every horror film. It's a throwback to Kubrick. It's a throwback to when music could be audacious and music could say, yeah, I mean, we're going down a hole here, and it's not going to end well. And those cues, it's deliberate. It's not someone slipping and falling on the audio, like the sound mixing booth. It's sort of like going, it's loud and unapologetically so. And I think music, I think Christopher Nolan said it recently too, when somebody was telling Hans Zimmer that his scores were too loud. It's like, man, it's music, and it's such an integral part of the film, and it's sort of creeped in, especially in Australian film, that it's like you don't even hear it. It's sort of supposed to be this seamless, sort of quiet child in the corner. And I just love the fact that this film, and I think this genre film needs music as, with production design, they work hand in hand. And so I had this sort of score idea, and Mike Darren, who composed the tracks, and early on I just said, look, I want half of the film to be this sort of industrial, sort of German Trent Reznor type vibe. And I wanted to just drive. I mean, Denis Villeneuve does it with his films. From the first time you see the logo, you have a heartbeat, you have a pulse, and it never lets up. And then we tried to seamlessly integrate that with, once we get to the house in the second half of the film, where there's some classical source music that takes over. We've got Mozart, we've got Beethoven, but again, it's all loud, and it's all sort of like, it's my first film, and I think tonally it works in the space, and I didn't want to sort of go, I better turn it down. And look, there's been a couple of people that have come up to us, and sort of said, oh, geez, the music was loud. And but there are far fewer people than the ones that have come up and gone, oh, the score's incredible, so I feel heartened by that.
Yeah, no, man, the score really stuck in there. I thought it fit the tone beautifully, especially even its opening sequence, just with the shot of the tree and everything. I'm like, okay, I'm with this. I'm gonna love this.
Yourself in. Yeah, that's the
thing. It really does, and it does. It feels like the tone of the movie. And I think Christopher Nolan says it best. Like, you don't have to hear every line of dialogue, but if the music it sometimes will say what the characters are already saying. We're seeing it through their performances and all that stuff. Yeah, and speaking of performances. You have some pretty talented actors in this movie, by the way, are all absolutely amazing. But I just want to know, how was it like working with, what's her name, Clemson and Russell?
Yeah, Adelaide Clemson. Yeah, she's and Alex Russell. Yeah, look, they're both Australian. They've been obviously over in LA and New York respectively for 5-6 years in the system now. But they're doing great work, and I knew them from Australia. And I mean, they're both very instinctive actors, and Adelaide especially. Like, I mean, it was a role that playing the dual role of both twins was tough because there wasn't like surface. There wasn't a hell of a lot of surface things that she could draw on. You know, there wasn't a massive change in wardrobe. There wasn't a massive change in sort of her appearance. So it's not like she could say, right, I'm that twin. So I wanted her to get an emotional distinction between the twins, and I think she gets there amazingly. I mean, all we did, I think the hair on one of them is slightly shorter, you know, within the play, and that's about it. There wasn't like a tremendous weight gain like a lot of films will do to help the actor perform, you know, and distinguish each twin. So Adelaide just goes there, and her process is so. She's not one of those actors that's, oh, what's my motivation? She would step in, she knew it, you know, signing onto the role, she knew where she had to go for both characters. We chatted about texture and tone, but essentially, I mean, she just got to places emotionally. I mean, we beat her up most days, you know, emotionally. She's sitting there and she's crying and she's doing all these sorts of things, and she just came back and back and back, you know, and asked very little of the crew, and there was no sort of smoke and mirrors. She was just a really raw, organic actress. And same with Alex, who had to play a far more sort of sympathetic sort of dual role, you know, and you know, yeah, both fantastic. They were actually, as a little bit of trivia, their first film was a film called Wasted on the Young, that both their starting roles when they were 19 back in Australia was in a film as well. So look, they were a dream. And getting Vila, you know, like, I don't know, Broken Circle Breakdown. I hadn't heard much of her, and then a manager sort of said, have you seen Vila Barton's in Broken Circle Breakdown, a film that was up for Best Foreign Language Oscar, I think, 2015. And I looked at it, and I just always felt, that she was, that the Narita character was European. So it was always, I just didn't seem right. We tested a few Australians, but it just felt like this, I mean, this organisation has to be an organisation of the world, you know? So I felt that she should be European, yeah.
All right, to describe Rabbit, if you had to describe Rabbit in 3 words, what 3 words would you describe it to viewers listening?
3 words?
Yes.
I would say tense, engaging, dreamlike.
But yeah, that is all the questions that I have for you, Luke. Dude, you have been absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk with me. Your movie is absolutely incredible, and for a feature debut, it's one hell of a job. Like, I'm like, I can't wait to see what you do next, and I think the reception is going to be really strong, so I don't think you're going to have to worry about that.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely love the movie. Make sure you guys, if you're listening, put this one on your radar. I was really blown away by it. And it's got great acting. It's great. It's beautifully shot. The score is its own character. The house the characters, like how he deals with twins in this movie, you guys, is really cool and really fascinating. And the way when twins are showed on screen, the way that they're framed and all that stuff, like, really sticks with you and stuff like that. And it all leads up. It's a mystery box, and you really feel like you don't fully get the full effect in the award until its beautiful final frame. Like, I just love everything about this movie. I had a great time watching it. And I thank you so much, Luke, for coming on.
Thank you, man. I mean, we've also got, we're at Rabbit Film 2017 on Facebook, so we've got, you know, you can follow its updates and that sort of thing too.
Awesome. So yeah, let me know in the comment section below, anyone and everything about Rabbit, and I'll be gladly to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, you guys, I'm the Slasher Movie Reviewer, and you guys have just been slashed.